Throw my ugly mug up here. Hey, no, man. Look at Jeff being all in here first and all. Hey, Sherry. Spider dog. All right, let's play this whilst we wait.
A police officer's career has come to an end after this controversial high-speed pursuit. St. Peter officer Thomas Wenzel lost his peace officer license after the Minnesota Court of Appeals ruled his use of deadly force was unauthorized and excessive. It was late September 16th, 2021, when police got a report of a burglary at Mill Pond Park. Officer Wenzel responded, finding two people near a camper. While questioning one suspect, the other entered a red Hyundai that was parked nearby and sped off. Officer Wenzel pursued the suspect through residential streets and onto Highway 169, hitting speeds up to 133 miles per hour. The fleeing suspect, later identified as 24-year-old Noah Guttum, crossed into the oncoming lanes of traffic, and despite the escalating danger, Officer Wenzel continued. This exclusive dash camera video of the high-speed chase was first obtained by Midwest Crime and has never before been released to the public. Our coverage is made possible because of sponsors like Morgan & Morgan. Over the years, we've brought you mind-boggling video of crashes like these, but what happens to the victim? Be entitled to millions of dollars. They've won significant recent cases for victims involved in at trial. The best part, their fee is 100% free. .com/Midwest.
So this video goes to show that sometimes public officials are held accountable through the court systems. And I'm just playing this for a few minutes till we get some people up in here. Happy New Year, Jess. Cap. Let's see. Jesus. The opposite way always gives me feels definitely a stressful. Dang, Wyatt, that sucks, man. At this point, why wouldn't he just pit him?
It was at this point during the pursuit that Wenzel's actions would become the focus of an investigation. He struck the fleeing driver's vehicle multiple times with his squad car in an attempt to bring the chase to a stop in the southbound lanes of Highway 169, while Gutham's vehicle had its brake lights activated. Under Minnesota law, deadly force is permitted only under specific circumstances, like protecting an officer or others from imminent death, or when apprehending a suspect who poses a similar threat. The Minnesota Board of Peace Officer Standards and Training found that Wenzel's actions during this pursuit did not meet those criteria. The board's investigation found Wenzel's use of deadly force was not only unnecessary, but it posed an extreme risk to public safety. During the pursuit, Wenzel struck the suspect's car 4 times, and according to a board expert, quote, the risk of danger was too great to continue the pursuit. When Wenzel was asked whether he considered terminating the pursuit, he said he intended to bring it to an end by striking the suspect's vehicle. This incident led to disciplinary action against Wenzel, and in 2023, following a thorough review and a hearing with an administrative law judge, the post board revoked his peace officer license. The board said that the decision was necessary to protect the public from Wenzel potentially using deadly force without authorization in the future, and that it provided a significant deterrent effect to other officers engaged in future high-speed pursuits. According to Wenzel's LinkedIn profile, he accepted a job as Chief Security Officer for Tyson Foods in Kansas in September 2024. Officer Wenzel sustained an arm injury from his squad's airbag deployment and
So there's that. Yeah. Sure. Let's see. But I mean, he's still, doing security. I don't know what kind of security that Tyson Foods uses, but at least he lost his law license, law enforcement's license. Yes, yes, always ready for festivities, misty-eyed girl. Okay. From the stairs, Wyatt. Chapter 7, taking control of your inner critic. It can be difficult to detect one's own negative thought habits. However, it is possible to significantly improve your mental health by becoming more aware of your thoughts and how they influence your mood and behavior. Individuals who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder may also endure additional challenges such as depression. Therefore, they may have negative beliefs about themselves, leading to low self-esteem and feelings of worthlessness. As a result, it is critical to learn how to recognize negative ideas and counteract them with positive ones as soon as possible. This allows you to act as your own source of social support. Recognize and address your negative thoughts. Hey, Linda. All right, I get it. I didn't even think about. I try to keep that whole fireworks out of my memory. So the cats will just go under the covers of one of the beds or something. So yeah, Wyatt, I can see it when you do, bud. It's tough when you're dealing with it at that level, and it's always good to have some outlet for it, right? Like we've talked about already. So um, it's just finding the right coping mechanisms. Recognize and address your negative thoughts. As we all are all aware, it can be difficult to break free from negative thinking. Incidents frequently remain etched in your memory, and the more you think about them, the more powerful they become. As a result, it may be necessary to devise strategies for diverting your attention away from them. There are a variety of distraction tactics that may be beneficial, including deep breathing, self soothing, and mindfulness. Distract distraction by itself will not allow for negative thoughts to disappear. They may, on the other hand, assist you in taking a step back from them, slowing them down, or reducing their intensity, making them easier to deal with directly. No, I wouldn't be surprised. I remember you I remember you saying he blocked you a couple of times. Here's my chapter. I use self-deprecating humor to mask my problems. Still learning to not do it as much. Yeah, that I mean, but it's a way to distract yourself, right, Spider Dog? So they may, on the other hand, assist you in taking a step back from them. Oh, I already read that. Let me hang on, Jess. I'll share it with you, with everyone. If I can find it in my subscriptions. Oh, Todd's Gaming. Cal Surprise. Where you at, Michael? Oh, you idiot. Sorry for the quietness. I'm trying to get Wyatt's page. Come on. And I will go ahead and do this for you. Oh, you're all good, Jeff. Let's see. All right, there it's got that. Okay. So distraction by itself will not allow for negative thoughts to disappear. They may, on the other hand, assist you in taking a step back from them. Slowing them down or reducing their intensity, making them easier to deal with directly. What's up, Trump said? So, working exercise number 4, overcoming and recognizing unhelpful thought patterns. Trauma can alter how people perceive themselves, others, and the world. And it is easy to fall into unhelpful patterns of thought. The following are some examples of unhelpful thought patterns that you may have as a result of traumas. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms, it may be beneficial to discuss your feelings with trusted family or friends, as well as a professional. Catastrophizing. It is easy to believe that something terrible will happen again because it happened before. For example, my partner is late coming home. They must have been in an accident like mine. Mind reading. It is easy to believe you know what other people are thinking, and these assumptions are usually negative. For example, you become extremely upset at work and are concerned that others will judge you. In fact, there is little evidence to support this conclusion, and your coworkers appear to be supportive and courteous. Jumping to conclusions. Started this game. It's called Jumping to Conclusions. When trying to understand what you're experiencing, it's easy to jump to conclusions. For instance, my anxiety indicates that I am in danger. Personalizing. People who think this way believe that everything revolves around them and that everything revolves around them in a negative way. They blame themselves and take responsibilities for things they don't need to. Yeah, I mean it's easy to fall into that. I can see it. For instance, that car accident was my fault. I should never have tried to drive to work in the rain. In reality, many things must occur for a traumatic event to occur. You cannot be entirely responsible for what occurred. With this example, most people drive in the rain with no problems. Staying at home every time it rains is not feasible, and it's not a reasonable expectation to place on yourself. binary thinking. When you're stressed, it's easy to think in black and white terms. There are no shades of gray. For example, I couldn't drive to the store today. I'll never be able to drive again. Statements about musts and shoulds. It's easy to set high expectations for yourself or others and then pass harsh judgment if those expectations aren't met. Yeah, I get it, Spider Dog. For example, I need to get this done by the end of the month. When people think like this, they are being critical of themselves, which can exacerbate an already difficult situation. If you find yourself thinking in this manner, it can be beneficial to try to be gentle with yourself. Do you ever have these kinds of thoughts? Make a list of the ones you encounter the most frequently, and then use the activity in the second part to reflect on them. For each thought, ask the following questions. Is there any evidence to support this idea? Is there any evidence based on facts to support this thought? Are there any patterns of unhelpful thinking that you can identify? What would you say to a friend who was thinking the same thing in a similar situation? Is there a different way to look at this situation? It's important to remember that these kinds of thoughts can happen to anyone, and that patterns of unhelpful thinking can be changed so they don't bother you as much, if at all. Putting your thoughts to the test. After your thoughts have waned in intensity, examine them and see whether they may be challenged. We often take our own thoughts at face value without ever questioning them further in our minds. Ask yourself the following questions to put a stop to negative thinking. What proof do I have for this thought or idea? What evidence do I have to support or refute this belief? Have there been instances in which this belief has not been true? What if this kind of thought occurs to me when I'm not sad, angry, or anxious? What would I say to someone else who is having the same kind of thoughts as me? What is an alternate explanation for the occurrence? It is possible to further counter negative ideas by making positive, self-supportive affirmations. Consider, for example, listing all of your positive characteristics or telling yourself about something recent that you are proud of. You can even tell yourself it's okay to be worried. You may find it difficult to formulate positive, self-supportive words while you are feeling down. As a result, it can be beneficial to write down some supportive comments on a note card and carry it with you in your pocket or handbag. Here are some examples. What happened does not define me. I am safe. I am not a mistake, nor am I fundamentally flawed. Feeling bad doesn't make me a bad person. I am allowed to ask for help. That's a big one. Asking for help is often a hard thing for people to do. I don't need permission to exist. What happened was not my fault. When you're feeling down, pull out the note card and read aloud those affirmations that will help you feel better about yourself. A few more common coping strategies include mindfulness meditation, aromatherapy, art therapy or craft making, taking care of pets. Alternatively, you can make a list of things that you are looking forward to in the upcoming week and ask yourself, what are some positive changes you have made in the last few months? Do not limit your use of coping to times when you are extremely unhappy. Make use of them on a daily basis. Make this part of your routine that we've talked about before. Set a schedule for uh, just practicing positive thinking. It may take a little while before you really get the hang of certain coping tactics, especially if you are new to them. As a result, it can be beneficial to practice them even when you are only somewhat distressed. The more you practice a coping technique, the more likely it is that it will become a habit. Recognize that not all coping methods are effective at all times. Identify situations in which a strategy may be most effective for you, as well as situations in which it may not. Even if you discover that it does not work for you in a particular case, try not to become discouraged. This is really vital information to know and will equip you to deal with that scenario more effectively the next time it arises. As part of my ongoing therapy, identifying these things is, and then discussing it with my docs, kind of helps mold a process, and it's ever changing. It changes from sometimes day to day or month to month. So just keep that in mind. Disconnection as a coping mechanism. Those who seek therapy for complex trauma frequently do so without even realizing it. See, my issues stem from having to maintain awareness of my surroundings and the emotions of the adults around me from a very young age. I had to anticipate what was going on, that was going to happen each moment as I grew. Yeah, I mean that's the whole crux of complex PTSD, right? It's all these learned habits and thinking, almost sometimes ritualistic thinking. Then there's, like you said, being on guard. So yeah, and it's, hey mirrors, you've woken up still drunk. Oof. It would take me days and days to recover from that. So first, they may experience despair or anxiety, numbness, lack of enthusiasm, or a failure to connect or succeed in a social or professional setting. If they are single or in a relationship, they may simply feel stuck, uncomfortable, or puzzled about their situation. In the aftermath of persistent or recurrent exposure to interpersonal disconnections, the term complex trauma relates to the way we structure our identity in order to deal with our experiences. Complex trauma, at its most fundamental level, indicates the ability to exist in fragments, an adaptive preservation of one's own self, no matter the cost. It is possible that this detachment from aspects of oneself will produce confusion in all relationships, including internal versus external, what should be versus what is, present versus past. What's up, Linux? Future versus present. Hey, Freddie, hope you're doing well. In order to maintain relationships with caregivers and to safeguard one's own identity throughout childhood, many of us have parts of ourselves that don't fit into the system. We're on the verge of collapsing in the process of organizing against oneself. We become walking dualities, the hard intellect versus the chaotic body. As a result, significant reactions and extreme adaptations occur on a regular basis for all of us. In complex trauma, the lack of experience causes an inability to heal as well as a desire for unmet needs while simultaneously protecting against them. This is the difficulty of complex trauma. Hey, Richard Fulmer. There isn't a consensus, so we're forced to fight for what we want most in life by pushing against what we want least within. It's human nature to desire a sense of security that will both release us and reverse the process, restoring the world to equilibrium. Jimbo, love you, buddy. We become acclimated to a constant threat when it enters our lives, affects the atmosphere, and becomes part of our daily experience. Assuming that we are born into the world with distinct needs and inclinations, it is usual for us to modify certain aspects of our personalities during our youth. When we are newborns, we are able to recognize and respond to the nonverbal cues of our caretakers. Their reactions to various emotions are demonstrated to us, and we learn to control whatever it is that causes them to fight, escape, or disappear. Frequently, this covers either specific feelings or a range of emotions in general. To prevent a sense of exile, we must learn to operate within their system and separate ourselves from our physical identities. We also become isolated from sensory information as a result of this, growing resistant to new information while being caught in the adaptation process. As a result of these efforts to adapt, the system we have effectively becomes the system itself. Our caregivers become part of us and are recreated within us. If our caregivers are judging us, we are judging ourselves. Let's see what Jimbo's. Just got done riding the VFR 750 and decided to video my ride and upload it to the YouTubes. Nothing dramatic, worth watching. Cool. Love watching the rides. I always watch Top Riding when he streams his stuff. Freddie, I just want everyone to know that I'm thinking about you and hello. I wish you a safe new year ahead of you and yours. My phone is charging. Not being mean if I don't say hello if you say my name. Thank you, Freddie, and very happy new year to you as well. Let's see. If they are disregarded or degrade us, we will do the same in return. If they didn't know how to perceive us, it's likely that we don't know how to see ourselves. We have difficulty noticing or expressing internal happenings. We frequently enter life with little understanding of how to govern our bodies or how to acknowledge cues such as hunger. If the disintegration proves to be successful, there is a subtle awareness that remains within ourselves, a feeling of detachment and a gentle reminder that some part of us yearns to be restored. From this, we are left with our shattered lives, fragments of ourselves, capable of surviving independently, but turning against one another and prohibiting anything that would help us heal. Polarization. Sometimes the elements of ourselves that we work the hardest to keep hidden becomes the most visible to others. When we strive to conceal our emotions, they grow larger and more audible. Really want to listen, for I don't know that you did this kind of stuff, and I like it. Thank you, G2. Yeah, I try to do it every day at 5, Freddie. So, and you know, do this kind of stuff and uh, veteran stuff as well. So the more people we can get in here, the more word can spread, and um, hopefully get people thinking about their taking care of their mental health. So when we strive to conceal our emotions, they grow larger and more audible. Already read that, but this is how we create polarization due to the fact that the one side is amplifying, the containing side is attempting to diminish, and the other in order to gain attention. This is the continual dance. The following are examples of unfulfilled needs countered with internal arguments or resistance. I want to be noticed could be resisted with, you have a fault in your character. If you allow others to see the real you, they will abandon you. I have to wear these cheaters all the time, Misty. I want to be successful could be resisted with, you'll become a target. Keep your life simple in order to be safe. I feel that way a lot, is just keep it simple, stupid, and you'll be safe. Don't try to expand beyond what accomplishments you've already had. Dang straight, Cap. Let me emphasize that more. I know I'm a more serious channel, but you know, we can be lighthearted too. That could not be a truer statement, sir. I have trifocals, Misty. I after 45 and then 50 really went downhill. I want to convey my energy could be resisted with. You're being overly enthusiastic. You're putting up too much of yourself to show. Maintain your composure or they'll abandon you. I'm feeling angry. Could be resisted with. Anger is not permitted. They will abandon you if you demonstrate your dissatisfaction. I want to be taken care of could be resisted with. Nobody will take care of you. You're on your own. I want to feel comfortable in the company of others could be resisted with. No one feels safe in your company. You will be alone for the rest of your life. If you want someone to be nearby, you must maintain a safe distance in order to prevent upsetting them and yourself. We can find ourselves on either side of a battle at times. Sometimes we are the amplified portion experiencing our own unfulfilled needs on top of the feeling of being confined. Other times, what did I do? Oh, okay. Button lickers. So other times we are the containing component, trying to survive and meet our needs while knowing that if the containing portion escapes, we would be punished or abandoned by the rest of the group. No matter which side of our consciousness we are on, the other side is always the bad guy. The inner and outer critics. One of the most difficult aspects of recovery is learning to control our inner and outer critics. Both the inner and outer critics can be considered normal reactions to external stimuli, depending on the situation. To the extent that people are social animals who require emotional connection, we can think of inner and external critics as complementary elements in a person's internal system of checks and balances that serves as a protective force. Dang, that was a sentence. Individuals' inner and outward critics are both malleable, and it is common for them to use a combination of the two as they manage relationships throughout their lives. Survivors of trauma might become overly reliant on this internal system, leading to a pattern changing their beliefs of themselves in order to avoid being exposed to vulnerability. If you are a survivor of childhood developmental trauma, you may have experienced one or both of your caregivers as emotionally unavailable and uncaring. They may have been cold and aloof, and you may have been punished for having emotions or acting on them. It is in such situations that children learn to channel their rage inward, causing problems in either the inner or outward critic. When they are grown, trauma survivors may also have been conditioned by their spouse, friend, relative, or coworker to respond in a particular way. An individual's natural reaction to maltreatment is to become enraged. As a result of the toxic atmosphere, a parent, spouse, or other family member may punish the individual for their anger, which perpetuates the cycle. It makes no difference whether the survivor was a child or an adult at the time, because humans will naturally adapt their behavior in order to fit the connection in question. Being in a toxic relationship can throw off the entire internal system, leading to emotions of toxic shame, an inner critic, or hatred for the people around you, the outer critic. So, what did I just think of? Well, it just left my brain, of course. The inner critic, according to popular psychotherapist Pete Walker, is defined as the superego gone wrong. While concurrently attempting to obtain the favor of one's parents, friends, partners, and coworkers, the inner critic drives the individual's formed superego to go into overdrive. The inner critic fuels a cycle of self-loathing, toxic guilt, and self-resentment that grows as a victim holds themselves responsible for any and all flaws in their lives. In the case of people who have grown up in a negligent or abusive environment, this self-hatred holds them accountable for their own faults and the abandonment and rejection of their parents. It has been hypothesized that persons who have experienced trauma as a result of abuse or neglect during their developmental period may also have issues in their relationships with others, including the critic. To say that recovering from reliance on the critic is impossible would be an understatement. However, for childhood trauma survivors, accepting they were not to blame for their parents' failures in care and nurture can be difficult. A survivor's perception may be altered as a result of unresolved trauma in such instances, and should be addressed by a therapist trained in trauma therapy. Excuse me. Surviving adults who have suffered from complicated interpersonal relationship trauma may also have difficulty breaking free from the grasp of their critic. When trauma is complex, it is defined as occurring as a result of a series of events that have no apparent beginning, middle, or end. As a result of this confusion and ambiguity, survivors often experience feelings of abandonment and rejection, as they are constantly ridiculed for their bad behavior or emotional reactions, and they are further punished as a result of this. After a period of time, It might lead to an individual believing that their own particular character faults are sufficient justification for maltreatment. Because each incidence of trauma is unique, abusers may shift their focus from blaming the victim to blaming others and external stimuli as the source of their maltreatment. Perpetrators of domestic violence frequently utilize this approach, blaming their own ill health or other external factors for their anguish and ensuing rage on the victim. You blame Scotto? How dare you, sir? Scotto can be blamed for nothing. He's an angel here on earth. Okay. Enough Scotto praising. It is possible that using techniques like these will lead a trauma survivor even after their relationship and dynamic have ended to continue blaming their environment and peers for their own failings. Well, I mean, Chat Jeff, it's always Shiz's fault, no matter what it is, no matter where in the world, it's Shiz's fault, dadgummit. An individual with a history of complex interpersonal relationships or childhood developmental trauma may be subjected to gaslighting tactics, which can lead to a distorted view of who they really are. Reliance on the critic becomes a subconscious act after a traumatic event. Survivors of trauma can become hypervigilant as a result of their experience. As a protective strategy, this focus on threats becomes an integral part of how an individual views life and the perceived hazards they face. In their face and their surroundings. A trauma survivor's hypervigilant causes them to have performance anxiety, which is particularly problematic when it comes to self-expression. Perfectionism and obsessive compulsive behavior are two examples of harmful emotions that might manifest themselves. Well, Nomad, Hefe is the only person that can on the fly AI anything in the world at any time. So, so it's Jeff's fault, really. So this perfectionism and OCD, I am very much one of my diagnoses denotes a rigid perfectionism and obsessive compulsive behavior. So he is that good, Nomad. Individual survivors examine their surroundings for signs of danger as hypervigilance or a heightened state of alert becomes a constant and interferes with the arousal of the nervous system, resulting in them scanning their surroundings for signs of danger. Because it provides the critic with a fundamental basis for why they are required in the first place. This serves as a spark for the critic. As a result, those who are hypervigilant may find themselves or others to blame for their perceived threats that they may or may not truly present, be present in the environment. The inner and the outer critic arrives as a system of checks on an unbalanced mind, allowing the psyche to reestablish its equilibrium. When a person is afraid to interact with others, they develop both inner and outer and an exterior critic, which are both destructive. If a person is unworthy of love or respect due to personal flaws, the outer critic will view the others as a danger to their own well-being or safety because of their flaws. Even though a survivor may believe that their emotional connection is safe, when their critic informs them that they aren't good enough, the critic is the one who causes abandonment due to their reaction and fear of rejection. An individual's inner and outer critics have the same purpose: to keep them apart and so they can't be harmed. When compared to the inner critic, who may point to personal inadequacies as a source of trauma, the outer critic will turn this thought around and place blame on others for one's unique situational circumstances. A person's inner critic will pick up on red flags or indications that someone else is breaking their trust. The outer critic is afraid of encountering people who treat us badly because of what we've already been through. Both internal and external critics are to blame for the decline in support and the breakup of an emotional bond. As a result, individuals are left feeling lonely and lacking in meaningful interactions. Because people are social creatures, focusing too much on the inner and outer critic will lead to a separation from others. It is vital to begin individual mind training in order to rebuild one's links with one's own identity and purpose. A survivor's life must include personal introspection if they are to avoid the risk of losing healthy relationships in the future. I mean, why my shirt is today is Antisocial Cat Dads Club, so I get the being antisocial. I have to be forced to go out. I always feel better when I do, though. Let's see. Wait. Make sure I was done with that. Nope. Self-awareness and identifying whether or not you are relying on your inner or outer critic are equally important milestones on the path to self-acceptance. Let's see. A person feeling this, like chains are holding them down with no escape, mental gymnastics they go through on a daily, is one of the hardest things. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mr. Reekin. And welcome. Hello. The first sign that trauma survivors' critic has come forth to protect them from themselves is when they direct scorn internally or externally. To restrict or minimize the critic, one must focus on removing similar thoughts and replacing them with concerns for one's own safety. At the same time, you should look for any possible triggers linked with the connection. A person's mental process and the deeper meaning behind it should be put on hold while they identify positive parts of themselves and others and adjust their narrative. Oh no, the narrative. You mean the truth? To bring the critic back into balance. Individuals are the only ones who can entirely change their critic because it requires a change in the mentality or with the support through therapy. It is possible to recover from a harsh critic by using positive self-talk. Humans naturally discharge their emotions through experiencing them in their physical bodies. It is genuinely believed that crying is cathartic and that it might help to alleviate dread. Before it goes to the inner or outside critic, it is therefore necessary to supply ourselves with the level of nurturing that we did not receive during traumatic occurrences in the past in order to reduce our critic. People who strengthen their inner child by experiencing the entire spectrum of emotions and accepting them discover a significant reduction in the level of the critic's voice. Embracing one's feelings is essential in lowering the critic to a whisper, which we may learn to recognize and dismiss with practice. Define meaning. Can there be meaning if thoughts aren't real? There's my philosophical question of the day. By establishing our own internal limits, we can lessen the influence of our own inner critic. It's possible to build an alternative interpretation by determining which critic assaults are significant and providing them with an opposing point of view. Internal limitations must be enforced, and defining and putting them in place may take a long time. A trauma victim must first learn to accept and love oneself before they can accept and like the people around them. This necessitates the availability of a secure and encouraging atmosphere. As a trauma survivor, having a stable environment is critical for healing from the trauma we've experienced in the past. It keeps us from becoming even more traumatized or needing to rely on the critic to keep us safe. What is an inner critic and how does it work? Inner critic is a term commonly used to describe a person's inner voice. Irrational self-criticism is a portion of our personality that constantly attacks us for no apparent reason. In certain circumstances, the situation is so awful that it can practically drive the person insane. Let's consider the following examples. Why do you believe you will be able to obtain a better job? Do you believe you are deserving of better? No, you don't. You have earned all you can ever make. the first therapy session I had, my therapist said something simple. They said it's time to allow yourself to think about yourself. That simple statement began the redefining of myself. I agree. And if you catch it and can keep that, it is a very, very good thing. No, it's not silly at all, Spider Dog. It's a powerful thing that, like I said, getting it. Um, get it, making it work to work on yourself is a very good thing. So you can deceive yourself and strive, but you already know that you are doomed to failure regardless of your efforts. You always come up short. You're a complete loser. Okay, so you have a romantic interest in someone and would like to speak with them. What gives you the impression they will like you back? Because you're so weird and foolish, why would anyone ever consider speaking with you? You don't have a single nice quality about you. Just lock yourself in your room and never open your mouth again because you are bringing shame on yourself every time you talk. So, origins of the inner critic and how it relates to trauma. Even if we have all have even if we all have an inner critic, the intensity of that critic varies for each individual. However, the desire to mistreat and judge ourselves is not innate to our being. The question, therefore, becomes, where does one's inner critic come from? When we're kids, our parents, teachers, relatives, and the other prominent people in our lives treat us a specific way, and we learn to relate to ourselves in a certain manner. As a result, as a result, in turn, we are more likely to acquire self-love, acceptance, respect, and care if those around us treat us the same. The problem is that if we don't have these things in our early relationships, or are treated disrespectfully, or otherwise abusively, we will learn to treat ourselves in the same manner as adults. And so we internalize the treatment we experience from individuals in positions of power and influence over us and learn to interact with ourselves in the same manner as we were treated. Consequently, an inner critic is a collection of negative, damaging, and painful messages we have received in the past. These words can be nasty, manipulative, aggressive, and inaccurate. Not all of the messages were overt, explicit, or unambiguous in the delivery. They did, however, contribute to the formation of your irrational and self-destructive notions about yourself and your place in society. The harm we have received is transformed into self-injury that we inflict on ourselves. When you have a loud inner critic, what happens? Oops. People who have been through childhood trauma are more likely to internalize negative and damaging teachings. As a result, individuals are affected by a wide range of problems. Many of those challenges are tied to their self esteem, as they have a tendency to underestimate their own worth. They frequently consider themselves to be inferior to others, weak, or perhaps inherently flawed in some way. Other difficulties concern one's own sense of self worth and self care. The lack of love they received as children prevented them from learning to love themselves as adults. Consequently, individuals suffer from inadequate self care and may even engage in self destructive behavior. They are also more susceptible to poisonous self blame and humiliation as a result of their experience of being held responsible for everything. Regardless of how hard they try, their inner critic never stops telling them that they're a bad person. One of the dangers of listening to this critic is the ongoing burden of excessive responsibility, the need to please everyone, to be faultless, and to set unreasonable expectations for yourself. Oh boy, here comes the firecrackers. The inner critic also has an effect on a person's social life, as they feel inadequate to go out and meet new people, or they may become extremely worried and irrationally fearful of other people's perception of themselves. They may be exploited and taken advantage of by persons who have dark personality qualities. Hey, Toker, Happy New Year, Jicky. Happy New Year. They, let's see, persons who have dark personality qualities, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, and so on. They may become trapped in toxic relationships and may be unable to leave because they are too confused or afraid to do so. They may also develop trust issues. Okay, y'all give me a few momentos. Hallelujah. I said it shall be taught Betty Bayou lay on me grave. Elohim, Melech haolam, Asher asani simcha teivim, Bayamim, Sorry, I was absolutely unprepared. Hey, y'all are still here. Chug the muck. Todd, go drink some hua juice. Is Todd here? Did I miss something? Toker, quite possibly. Hey, Justin. We're drinking, not me, Oshin. So, taking back control of your inner critic. How you cope with your inner critic can be approached in a variety of ways. Nevertheless, some tactics will be more effective than others. The following are some ways that I have discovered to be effective. Rational evaluation. It can be helpful to talk to your inner critic and pay attention to what it says. Self-criticism can be beneficial as long as it is constructive and valid in nature. The idea is to rationally examine the criticism you receive about yourself in order to identify what is accurate and what is untrue, as well as to what extent each is true. Then you accept the truth and reject the deception. Dismissal. This self-criticism is always accompanied by unfair self-sabotage in the majority of cases. After making the determination that what your inner critic is saying is incorrect, you are under no need to hear or accept what they say. Oh, you're good, Justin. Listening is the good thing about what I do is it's mainly a listening thing, right? So as long as you can listen, I'm happy. You have no option to dismiss it immediately. You have the option to dismiss it immediately. This is similar to how you might ignore an out of control individual on the street who is following you and yelling obscenities at you. Work on one's own inner journey. It is important to understand that why you're having a hard time dealing with your critic if you want to use the previous two strategies effectively. They're more of a temporary fix, which is why they're so commonly used. Permanent transformation takes more than just examining or dismissing their thoughts and ideas. If you truly want to resolve and make peace with your inner critic, you will need to dig deeper and, hey, Chino Nino, Happy New Year, and undertake treatment as well as self-analysis and reflection. This is where you analyze your early connections with caregivers, try to understand your self-perceptions and why you hold them, and grow to love and care for yourself. You also learn to establish healthier boundaries and how to increase your self-esteem. Self-improvement is the key to conquering your inner critic once and for all. Handling the inner critic. One of the most difficult aspects of dealing with severe post-traumatic stress disorder is learning to silence the inner critic. Neglectful or abusive homes in which caregivers do not generate a sense of safe connection and the child are the most common causes of the critic's development. There will be a lot of children in this situation who will strive for perfectionism to prove themselves to their parents in order to get their love in return. The child's fear and unhappiness grow as a result of perfectionism's failure to establish the link as they grow, as link that the youngster so desperately needs. As anxiety increases as a result of repeated failures to achieve perfection, the inner critic begins to speak up. The child begins to look for all of the ways in which he or she is faulty, becomes hypercritical of himself or herself, and assumes responsibility for the parent's lack of love. When the abusive setting includes frequent berating about the child's ineptitude or worthlessness, the critic can become much worse. Finally, the child comes to understand unequivocally that he or she is a flawed being, still in desperate need of parental approval. A vicious cycle of perfectionism to obtain the approval of the parents is set in motion, followed by severe self criticism. As the pursuit of perfection continues to fail, perceived imperfection becomes increasingly associated with feelings of fear and shame. Flashbacks and the inner critic. To effectively manage complex PTSD, you must silence your inner critic. The fact that your inner critic is so strongly associated with feelings of worthlessness you experienced as a child means that you must work to stop it as soon as possible. Using positive thinking to combat the inner critic is one of the most effective ways to defend yourself. If you can act fast to detect the inner critic's thought and replace it with a more positive one, you can avoid falling into a downward spiral into an emotionally charged memory. Make a list of the instances in which your inner critic appears the most frequently. When your inner critic has already pushed you into a flashback, it might be tough to find anything positive to focus on. Consider making a list of some of your positive characteristics and accomplishments, no matter how insignificant, to be prepared for these types of circumstances when they arise. You can use this list to serve as a regular reminder to yourself as an adult that you are a deserving person, which will aid you in overcoming the emotional flashback. Learn to interpret your inner critic, and you'll find yourself on your own side, empowering the child within you to see his or her own worth. That's the important thing, right? Is learn to interrupt that critic and finding yourself on your own side. The power of self-compassion. When faced with chronic and intense interpersonal dangers, amen, Spider Dog. Complex trauma is an expected response. Exposing the process, the ability of a core self to maintain what matters most, even if it means distancing themselves from the source of the threat. Increasing our self compassion means becoming more conscious of our own suffering. Years of instinctive seclusion and internal judgment frequently result in an awakening, a softening toward what was formerly thought of as an enemy. And a protective hesitance becomes a thankful embrace of oneself. It's important to note the most striking indicator of this awakening is the sudden emergence of ownership and empathy for oneself. Having an aha moment or revelation is revealing I am not this huge emotion or the judgment of it. We now understand that this part in exile has been trying to get our attention. In order to elicit a response from us that it never receives from our caretaker, it's like finally seeing what you've been avoiding for so long. When we learn that the confined part has been defending us all along, and that some part of us thought our core was so valuable and deserving of protection, the contained part stops being a bully. Self-compassion is a simple act of informing one's the self. I think that's a lovely sentiment to realize that at our core we knew that we were valuable enough to take on this self-protection mode, and but these coping mechanisms became so strong in some circumstances that they overrode normal processes, and until we come to grips with what those protection mechanisms were and are, we learn to embrace them and embrace ourselves. So anyway, so self-compassion is a simple act of forming the self. Yes, this did happen, and this present emotion is how you've been feeling for a long time. It's something I can feel in my body. I get what you're saying. You did not deserve this anguish, nor did you cause it, and I will not punish or abandon you. Mr. Reekin, it really is the best thing you can do for yourself and those around you. And it may mean letting go of some relationships if those relationships are toxic too. But that's a thing for you and your therapist to always work out. So it is definitely a great investment in yourself. One could also come to the realization that I am fearful of others because I'm afraid of myself. What's up, Lucy? Welcome, welcome. Been seeing some good work as of late. Let's see. Fearful of others because I am afraid of myself. Alternatively, I am reliant on others because I have abandoned myself, or even my feelings intensify and overpower me exactly because I attempt to reduce and disregard them. Attunement and compassion are the missing ingredients in the experience of abuse or neglect. They allow for a brief moment of empathy for the contained portion, for the child who was injured and who reacted in the only way a child could, by acting out of fear. There is also an understanding in that moment of empathy. All of this anguish is also mine, and everything that is most important to me has been maintained. So that's again, right? The critic and the super ego. Happy New Year's, Boston, to you and yours. Uh, say hello to Lupe, your better half. Oh my lord, so funny. And also remember that 2025 is beginning with WTF. I don't know if that's Shalom and Boker Tov Tom Donovan. Let's see. Healing requires integration, the ability to balance opposing viewpoints, the willingness to extend an olive branch to former enemies, as well as an inward dialogue of acceptance and compassion. As a result, having access to a part of oneself that can witness without becoming caught up in or becoming one's thoughts and feelings will be important. People who visualize themselves as a child experiencing and feeling the sentiments of that young person often sense an internal release. Their child persona starts to hear their own words of sympathy and feels welcome. And they recognize this while empathizing and communicating emphatically outside of themselves. What? What? What are we talking about, Mr. Regan? Mr. Regan, Spider Dog's absolutely right with that. So it is this internal love that transforms one's entire experience of existence. It is acceptance and admiration without any judgment when we practice intentional self compassion. We may let go of all the shackles that have bound us in the past. We have a chance to feel both free and connected at the same time. All right. Let me see. For any of you guys that don't have it, I'm going to post my Discord. I know most of you are there. Any questions, comments, suggestions? We have we'll probably finish this day after tomorrow. I have a sleep study tomorrow, so I'm going to be out of pocket. Gotta love the VA scheduling a sleep study on the freaking first day of January, but I'll take it. Yeah, Boston. Sorry, bud. I'm glad y'all made it home safe, by the way. So I'm going to be trying to do this at 5 every day, just in case. Yeah, I have to go in Boston. At home stuff's probably not available for us lowly VA types. Everybody have a great New Year's. I will see most of y'all over at the Hill Pirates at 8. we'll be doing our New Year's special starting then. So if there's no questions, comments, suggestions, gripes, complaints, I will end it here, and I will see y'all later. Amen, Tom. 8 Eastern Standard Time, Toker. Yes, the only time zone that is necessary.